Hello everyone! Today we're going to start our tree weaving project. Our first job is to do the background. So you'll decide where the horizon line is. Maybe you're even going to have multiple horizon lines, like some hilly areas. You could decide if yours is going to be in a city or, out in the country somewhere. I'm going to begin painting the sky first. I have some different cool colors here and a big brush. You'll want to make sure your name is on the background first. If you're going to have snow on the ground, you'll want to paint it and think about adding a little bit of blue or pink or even purple to your snow so that way it's not pure white. Feel free to continue adding more details onto your background. When your circle loom is all dry, we're going to begin to start weaving it. To weave, we have to prep the loom. So I'm going to turn my board over, but I first want to mark on the back side where the top of the board is. So this marking is showing the top of the board. Now, if I'm doing an evergreen tree, my loom will need to be shaped like this. If I'm doing a deciduous tree, like a tree where the leaves change colors, my loom will need to be like this, okay? So if you're doing a pine tree, you're gonna have one notch at the top and an odd number of notches along the bottom edge. If you're doing a deciduous tree, it's the opposite, so we'll have more notches on the top. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go straight down and mark dead center on the bottom. Okay, since I'm doing a pine tree, I'm gonna add more notches on the bottom. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm gonna count them, I need 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can have more than 9, but you have to make sure it's an odd number. If it's an even number, it won't work. Now, don't cut them very deep, but you're gonna go ahead and cut all of those notches. We're doing this on the back so you can't see your pencil lines on the front. We're ready to string. We're gonna be using this brown cotton string. Works good for a variety of branches. I'm gonna tape it and come down that first top notch. Now you can go in any of the notches. I'm gonna start over here on the leftmost side and then come back up to the top notch and now come straight down to the second one. These should be fairly tight, so if they're sagging or loose, you need to go back and tighten them. Come back up the top, down the bottom. So we are wrapping completely around the loom, which is different than how we do a straight loom. Normally we don't have strings on the back, but we're not planning to take this off. That's the difference. This is going to be a finished piece of art with the loom included. There we go. Finish it off by pulling your tail tight and taping it on the back. We're ready to weave. You could start with the green or whatever your tree color is going to be, or if you want to do a bottom where you have like a trunk of your tree, you could do that first. So I'm going to tie one end of the yarn to the needle, so thread through the eye, bring it back over. I like to make a loop like this to put the tail through, and you want to do it a second time. So I kind of grab, twist to make a loop, put the tail through the loop and pull tight. So now that's attached to there. And we're gonna weave a single row of yarn at a time. Okay. I'm gonna weave these 1, 2, 3, 4 in the center here and not do these 2 on the edge, just for the beginning part. So I go under, over, those 4. Pull my tail through. You can tie it, or eventually you'll be able to tuck that tail in. That's the end of my first row, so now I go back, opposite. So under, over. There's my second row. Remember, you don't want to pull tight. Okay, you want to leave a little bit of looseness there, so that way these don't start to go in like that for the pine trees. If you want a skinnier trunk, maybe do less strands. I finished the trunk by cutting the yarn off of the needle, tucking that little bit of tail behind the tree trunk, and I've now cut some green yarn. I'm gonna repeat those same steps of threading the yarn through the eye of the needle, tying, and then beginning. And remember, for the tree, you're gonna use the full length of your warp strands. So starting from the outside, over, under. Pull through. You can either leave that tail, tie the tail, or you can just plan on tucking it underneath the tree when it's done. Remember, always switching the yarn. So if I ended over, start on an under, and just continue weaving your tree. Make sure you're not pulling tight on those ends. Okay, if you pull tight, it's gonna start kinking in a little bit and it will lose a little of that nice triangle shape. So give yourself a little slack before going back the opposite direction. And just scooching down every once in a while. Let's take a look at one that is a little further along. This one here. This one I'm using a color changing yarn. So you can see this yarn's got different greens and some white stripes. I'm at the point where I'm more than halfway done with my tree, but I'm running out of yarn. So I'm gonna cut it off my needle. Cut this little weird knot off too. Grab some more yarn. Thread one end and tie it to the needle. And for the tail, I have some options. I could tie a knot here and cut. I could tuck this underneath my tree, or this is the cleanest option. I like this the best. I'm gonna tie these together. Let's zoom in for this part. All right, to tie them together, I'm gonna lay them down so they're both going the same direction. I'm going to make a rainbow line with them, or a curve. And then I'm gonna take this top of the curve and flip it. So I'm creating a loop, and then I push these tails up, over, and into the loop. Okay, so I'm gonna do it a little bit faster the second time. Match them, curl them, twist the middle to create a loop, push the two tails in, and pull tight. Then you can cut the tails off. And now you're ready to go. So you can continue weaving, always making sure that each row is the opposite of the row underneath it. Continuing all the way to the top. Let's talk about the top of the tree. This part is tricky, you guys. At some point, these strands just get so close together that it is really impossible to continue with the over, under pattern. So when you get to this stage, we do want to try to get as close to the top as we can. And what you can do is really paying attention to the ends. Like right now, I ended over, so I know I have to go under this first strand. I'm gonna, instead of trying to go in and out of every strand, I'm gonna skip over some of these strands and just try to pick up one in the middle. You might even stick your fingers underneath to kind of help you with this. And then go over a couple more and then come out. So instead of going in and out of every single one, I'm kind of like grouping the strands together. And now I ended under, so I have to go over first. So I'll go over a couple, pick up a strand from the middle area, maybe even 2 strands, go over, pick up another strand, and end. So instead of going in and out of 9 different strands, I might really only be going over under a few strands. Do that as long as you can. You can use your needle to help scooch them a little bit tight because you don't want a lot of gaps in here as well. And then the other thing that ultimately I think you can do is go under all of the strands, jump over the loom so that you're bringing the whole strand over, and then go under again. So this in effect is going to kind of wrap all of the strands together, and you'll be able to cover it in yarn. Again, if you pull too tight, it's going to look a little wonky. Okay. When you finish your tree, you can decide how you would like to decorate it. If you want to add some beads for ornaments or for lights, you can. There's options on how you could maybe add some snow, either using some foam pieces or some fluff pieces. And you can also think about a tree topper.